anyway, Engineer Matt Mammone, 15-year firefighter,
Right.
engineer. So he basically is standing in the same space that I was, or am, and did not put in an exemption for the same reasons. Also, there's a lot that goes into this. Our union has said that they have never made an agreement with the city that the mandate is okay, and we know that we have an MOU or a contract, right? Mm-hmm. Our union is the bargaining agent for us, and so the union president has stated verbally to me and many others multiple times that no, they never made an agreement with the city that this is not okay. They stated that the city stepped away in bad faith and gave the last best final offer. I have that in writing as well from other members on the board. And so what the city is hanging their hat on is that this is a condition of employment. Well, in order to change my condition of employment, you have to go to collective bargaining, and then that has to be agreed upon. There has to be a letter of agreement. All of these things have to happen in labor law for that to happen. And the city just throws their hat on, this is an emergency, we're doing whatever we want. And like what I've stated to the union multiple times is that if that's the case, the city has the ability at any time to declare anything an emergency and can step in and change your condition of employment at any time. So what is the purpose of the union at that point? There is no reason for you to bargain because it's just they're going to do as they please. So for us, it's an illegal change of our working condition.
Absolutely is illegal.
Like I've stated before regarding exemptions, so on and so forth. There's a lot of factors that go into that. And so, Engineer Mammone was standing in that space. And, one of the other things as well is, they can put you off if they want to terminate you and or discipline you. But in the state of California, as you guys know, we have what's called Skelly.
Right.
So Skelly was a doctor in, I believe it was 1975, that was terminated without due process. And he sued the state, Skelly versus Labor Commission, I think it was. Anyway, and he got his job back and got all of these Skelly rights put into place. And one of those, there's a whole due process section, but it was basically that they have to give you what's called a Skelly packet. And in that, before they discipline you, and would be in that would be the charges that are being put up against you, and then they have to give you the ability to refute that and state why it is, and then they have to give you the proposed discipline. And so, at that point, if you go and you can either respond to that in writing or you can show up at an actual Skelly hearing. At that point, they make their decision, and then if you don't agree with their decision, then you can request to go to a Board of Rights. And that's what Engineer Mammone had. But the problem is that they never gave him a Skelly packet before disciplining him. So, or any of us, they just put us off, leave with no pay. And that again, because of Skelly, we have a substantial property right to our job, meaning just like you and your house, right? If you don't make the payments, you have to go through this whole process before they can foreclose on it. And, they give you these different, same thing with this. They can't just take your job and your livelihood away from you. They give you the Skelly packet, you go through that. And if they are going to put you off, then they have to put you off leave with pay until you go and you pick your Board of Rights, the chiefs that are going to sit on there. At that point, then they put you off leave no pay, and in 10 days they have to start their trial. So none of that happened. So all of that was illegal. They've violated Supreme Court ruling on Skelly. We also have the Firefighter Bill of Rights in the state of California, which CPF took 21 years or whatever to get that instituted. And that deals with Skelly and, discipline and due process and all of that. They violated that as well. They violated our city charter that specifically lays out all the disciplinary procedures. They didn't do any of that. And they hang it on the hat that it's not discipline, it's a condition of employment. That doesn't make any sense.
But how could? Okay, I'm not a legal expert, but there's a lot of there's a lot of questions that come with that, right? Because it's like, I guess the real underlying question is how far can the gray area get pushed when you run under emergency, basically any kind of emergency scenario for legislation or for how departmental laws are going to be changed, or maybe stymied to do whatever they want to do because it's clearly what happened. And it's like, okay, like you don't do any past practice because there hasn't been a past practice of this technically, correct, right? Most vaccination requests or parameters are set on first terms of hiring, which is standard across every public entity, right? So it's like, okay, you were okay here. We can use this other gentleman, for example, 15 years in the service, and has probably done he has done everything that he's supposed to do in the entire time frame of being 15 years, which is, he hit the halfway point on being vested for, the long-term career or the 30-year career, if you will. And now they let him go on a stipulation in a time period that, whether or not the city was like, hey, we want everyone vaccinated, which is clearly what they're trying to do. You can say whatever those influences are, whether it's finances or because they, quote unquote, really care. At the end of the day, it's like, and I think we might have actually talked about this last time when we were talking about like exemptions, right? And I like your explanation of exemptions because it's once you do that, you're committing that you actually agree with them, but you're trying to find a scapegoat, right?
Yes.
But those exemptions are even so unclear because I believe, and I'm not going to say LA at the time, but I've talked with other people within different departments that had those similar things where there was religious or medication wise, but there was like, you had only been able to go, like you might get off like, okay, you can do it for 2 months and then you got to get reevaluated. And what's fascinating with that one is it's the religious one. You're like, okay, so you're going to talk to me again in 2 months. Like, am I going to be any less or more religious? Like, who constitutes that? What do those questions look like? What's the grading rubric on that?
Yeah.
It's basically like, oh yeah, they seem like a, devout whatever.
And we asked that question.
And I'm assuming you got a very vague answer. Seems
or no answer.
Or no answer, yeah.
Is that crickets I'm hearing?
Yeah.
You're telling me that there's a panel that's going to review these. Well, under Title VII, there is no review. You put your exemption in, and they have to grant it. It's how are you to tell me what my sincere belief is?
Right.
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 That's. I could be worshiping literally a dandelion. I sincerely believe that this is, what I'm. Whether that's Gaia theory or whatever you want to, it doesn't matter.